This is how they get you to want to run for politics, eh? Because nobody can do a good job, right? We're being let down by our governments in every country around the world. I mean, I can't speak specifically to every government in the world, but let's say a large percentage of the world is run by governments that care not for the people, just for their corporate dollar. Their budget is always, their coffers are always full and their budgets are always slim to none. If there is a budget for anything, healthcare or anything, it's a little budget, you know. War will give you a big budget, but healthcare, small, free healthcare, oh, that's unheard of. But let's buy more warplanes that cost the price of hospitals to run for 20 to 50 years. One plane costs as much as, you know, we could run 5 hospitals with what it costs for one new warplane, you know. Don't get me started on battleships or, you know, space fleets. The price on these is ridiculous. Not to mention you have war, you know, you have the warriors, supposedly, I guess, the warriors that you have to pay for, the war mongering armies that exist in this world are bountiful, right? And you got all this problem going on right here underneath our noses. Every day we pay small taxes to pay those first to pay for those first paychecks, right? For the people. If we were to not pay those first paychecks, we would have no more wars overnight, because these generals are making millions of dollars. You know, a person who is high up in the military can make hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? But then you come home after your career in the military to a city full of chaos and terror, right? Because you weren't there, because you were off overseas fighting for some old man to gain control of land that they did not deserve, nor should they have ever had the chance to grab. Bodies of water are being fought for right now on this earth, right? This earth is a battleground for rich elites to wage war, to gain control of full water resources in an entire continent. We have to stop allowing governments to push the ideology of war. We need to make that illegal, you know? They talk about anti-vaxxer, this and that. How about the ideology of saying anything bad about another country should be banned and illegal in every country by government? No president, no prime minister should ever stand up and say, oh, we don't like this. No one person has the right to decide the fate of millions, if not billions of people through war. If we are to wage war on something, every person on this earth must agree that we must wage war on something. Not one old man decides the fate of 365 million people and the fate of how they're looked upon by the rest of the world. We have allowed governments to force viewpoints on us through movies, TV shows, news stations, newspapers, magazines, and shitty online media that controls the airwaves entirely. They decide the fate of what is said aloud, and they can scrub you, blacklist you, shadow ban you. Johnny Depp calls it something else. There's another term that was used in the 80s. There are so many terms for what these 4 or 5 grubby old men can do, and there's no more of this. If we can't have transparency, then we fucking jail you. If you're found by us, I mean everyone on this earth, to have done wrong, waged wars, caused wars, false flag wars. The Bushes are responsible for so much evil. They've never faced justice. They're in control of part of the CIA. We're being lied to. The government is simply a corporation that oversees your life, which means you're a slave. You're not a free man. That's why I'll be running for government and fixing all these problems. And when there's a United Nations summit, I will speak very loudly at every country that fails to elect fairly and democratically through actual elections written on paper, not controlled by third-party, software designs. Florida was a BS scam. I will vote for hash info, says the alien chief. Damn rights you will, bro. Can't talk about alcohol. You can do what you want, but don't come in here and influence or publicize what I just talked about on an earlier stream as saying is an evil stimulant created by 4 old men to control the population and dumb it down. Alcohol, specifically. Look at why they, go so hard against things that free your mind, and look at how they control. They could have controlled and legalized anything they wanted to, anytime they wanted to. Look at what they did in Canada. But they chose to legalize cigarettes, the government did, and they chose to legalize alcohol. 2 of the worst things for the human body. Dumb you down and they make you weak. Cigarettes are despicable, disgusting things. Small-minded people, weak-minded people, trained weak-minded people. It's not that you are dumb or you are weak. You are being controlled with substance abuse that you can't control because it's extremely addictive, and it degrades you. It downgrades you. You want to talk about what upgrades are? Upgrades are when you have a hash info smoothie for 4 years, 2 years straight every morning. You just upgraded your body for the next 10 years. You smoke cigarettes for 2 years or 4 years straight. You've now downgraded your life expectancy, as well as everything about you sucks. Now, your skin, your breathing, your mind, everything, your heart, everything is weaker and less. You're less when you smoke cigarettes, so stay off of them. Alcohol, a horrible substance, I used to have a dad when I was in 1983. I had a dad, and never again, I guess, will I have a dad, because I don't have a dad now. He's a bad man. If he exists anymore, I could care less. But he drank alcohol, and he was a horrible person. His mind was sick, and he did horrible things, probably to a lot of people, in his drunken stupor and after, and not even drunk, but it blows brain cells like nothing else you'll come in contact with. See, alcohol ruins your life from the inside of your mind out. So First, it rots your brain, kills brain cells, and then you become dumb and worse of a person, less of a person. You've been downgraded entirely. Check it out. Check it out. People who knew you maybe when you barely touched alcohol or not at all, to now, look at you. Look at how you barely move around, right? Look at you. So think about it. A lot of people have a lot of influence in this world, and they choose to influence you with beers and drinks. You will never see the influence of alcohol on this show. I won't. I don't do it. I don't stand for it. And I won't promote it on this show. And that's what the difference. I'm not a fucking sellout. I didn't come here to just pitch vodka shots. You know, I don't want anything to do with that. So, remember that. Remember that I didn't sell out even years after being here. And I've never approached an alcohol company for a brand deal or endorsement. Not one time. Epic Terrestrial says he also had a bad father. It's all about the recognition. You know, if you can recognize how evil something is, you can separate yourself from it. Segregation, a horrible, horrible thing. I will define the word segregation and then post it in the chat there in a minute. The definition that I come up with. But segregation is it's going to become the new thing. Everybody, it doesn't have to be. It could become the new thing. I should say very carefully and clearly that you have choices to make, and if you stand up, you have a voice that you can utilize, which is a tool at your disposal to keep you free, to keep you safe. But you got only so many words you can say, okay? And some of you, it's a shame because you drank so much booze, the 7 or the 4 words that you can mutter and spit out first make no fucking sense at all. That's why you watch TV. You don't make content, okay? Your brain is gone. It's obliterated. You're a zombie watcher. There is a term out there that the elites, this is something you guys don't have a clue about, but this is how the term creator came about. A content creator, this is how this came about. When you watch, so they have what's called ratings on TV, which have been around for however long, since the dawn of dawns, because this has been going on for millennia, if not millions and millions of years. Told this is only a 4,000-year cycle, that's BS. Ancient remnants from hundreds of thousands of years ago exist, so lies they tell. But the Smithsonian covers them up so carefully and daily. With the help of the 7 old men controlling all the media in the world, it's fairly simple now. Now with digital technology, it's the easiest it's ever been to scrub the internet, okay? And there's a lot of things I haven't said, but the internet's been scrubbed for years now. Years. They talk about Hillary Clinton bleached the internet. She bleached the internet. It is very, very hard to do. Most people don't even have a clue what I'm talking about, but that's the difference. And only person that can bleach, the internet are millionaires and billionaires. And that's no joke. So, if there's anything bad about you on the internet, most likely it'll always be there. That's just how it is. So many people side with evil. You make videos that promote bullying of another channel, and you degrade and you gang stalk certain channels because you're not vegan or you still eat meat and you can't live with your conscience. That's like, oh, it makes you feel bad. You know, you watch the show, I don't kill to live, and I thrive. I don't survive, I'm thriving. Being a plant-based muncher, I love it. Come on. Times have changed, but you haven't. So think about that. Let's quickly do segregation here in 5-10 seconds here, because it's that easy to do it. You can go and define words yourself and understand them. Lots of people don't understand the most basic of words. You should start out with what's called the root word. I started learning root words 1984. I was 4 years old and I knew what the term root word meant. I could speak a bit of 2 languages very well. Not the whole language, but the words I knew, I could put them in a most beautiful sentence you've never seen before in either language. 4 years old, but you and me not same.
Segregation. Segregation. Segregation.
The action.
Segregation.
Segregation. The action or state of setting someone or something apart from other people. That hurt my heart. Or things, or being set apart. The segregation of pupils with learning difficulties. So, and that's the least offensive of them all. The enforced separation of different racial groups in a country, community, or establishment. Doesn't have to be racial groups. They have to update this. The separation of pairs of... Ew. In genetics. So for a genetic term, actually, segregation takes on something that the separation of pairs of alleles, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, alleles at meiosis, I believe I pronounced that right. We're going to have to define this word and get the pronunciation. The separation of pairs of alleles at meiosis, and because there's symbiosis, meiosis. I don't know if this says meiosis or meiosis. meiosis. And their independent transmission via separate gametes. Plural noun segregations. Can I click on this? No, eh? There's nothing else to dig deeper into that? That's really cool, but and now I'm not talking about the other one. I'm talking about the genetic part. Because we look to do that with when we want to... This has got to be something to do with how they... this is what I do. I got to screenshot this. Sometimes I only half of the sniff. So what I'll do is I'll pull it apart. But this is going to help me if I understand... There's usually 3 to 5 ways to do something. Let's find out what these words are. Oops, let's also do this word. Hang on, I better do both of these words. Define, no. So, define. First we'll do the first word. What did that say? Define allele in biology. That's what I want. Ugh. But I have to define it first. I want to spell it. I want to say the word out loud.
Allele.
Allele.
Allele. Allele. Allele.
Allele. That doesn't
Allele.
say allele.
Allele.
Allele. Whatever. That doesn't say allele though.
Allele.
One of two or more alternative forms of a gene that arise by mutation. One of two or more alternative forms of a gene that arise by mutation and are found at the same place on a chromosome. Oh, wait. I want to see. Damn it. Don't stay right there. Okay, good. There's a second thing it says here. Allele is a variant form of a gene. Some genes have a variety of different forms. That's what I said at the beginning. If you play it back and listen, I said sometimes I know there's more than one thing going on, but I separate, pull them apart, and then I literally make just that sniff come out a couple years later at least. Like a maximum. I'm that good. Which are located at the same position. Some genes have a variety of different forms which are located at the same position. Some genes have a variety of different forms which are located at the same position of genetic locus. How often and form of a gene, that's what it says. How often and form of a gene shows up in population over several generations. That's exactly what I'm saying, but it's written so poorly and so small, but I should be able to make sense of that in a couple of years if I really pay attention. I'd have to circle that area of the picture. Tiny red writing. The number of copies of a particular allele divided by the number of copies of, I don't know what it's cut off to, so I can't even read it all. Alleles at the genetic place in population. The number of copies of a particular allele divided by the number of copies of, damn it, I can't read that word. That's a really important word. Blank alleles at the genetic place in population. Here we go. Listen to this. An allele is a variant form of gene. Some genes have a variety of different forms which are located at the same position or genetic locus on a chromosome. Humans are called diploid organisms because they have two alleles at each genetic locus, with one allele inherited from each parent. No. Is this the same as the other then? I gotta find this. So is the genetic diversity the same for plants as it is humans? But I'm not done here. I gotta watch very carefully. I don't want to leave here yet. But I gotta remember genetic diversity the same between humans and plants. I thought it was damn near identical, but I gotta check this now. Oh, I gotta take a picture of this too. This is good. We gotta also do genetic locus, because I don't know exactly where that is or where it lies. We're gonna have to learn about it. Genetic diversity. Oh, no, it's more like the same parameters that govern genetic diversity. Are they the same for plants as people? Does genetic diversity differ between plants and people? Does genetic diversity differ? Not diversity, fuck. It might be that. Let me see. Does genetic diversity... No. I said it right the first time. Does genetic diversity differ between, not diversity, but the parameters that govern it? But we'll try this first. Does genetic diversity differ between people and plants? I'm not saying it right, but it might. Computer isn't as advanced as you think it is. Global gene flow releases invasive plants from environmental constraints. This is literally what I said happened, and Buddy was like, they would never do that, but he doesn't know the word Monsanto, I guess. Global gene flow releases invasive plants from environmental constraints on the difference in heterozygosity between the two populations. Human activity can affect genetic diversity. Well, obviously. Do plants have genetic diversity? It is generally recognized that plant genetic diversity changes in time and space. This blows my mind. That means that plants grown in space would not even be remotely the same as plants grown on Earth. I bet you trichomes would be way bigger. I bet you everything is bigger in space because it's weightless. Oh my god, I gotta get to space. I gotta get to space with my beans. It is generally recognized that plant genetic diversity changes in time, and I gotta live forever so I can keep watching her just evolve. You should see some of the things I've seen. It's totally different than anything I've ever seen before. I've got certain types that, like, the calyxes they're not even remotely like anything you've seen before. It's ridiculous. And it blows my mind. The flavor and the terps they're unmistakable, but they're unrecognizable. They're only known to me. Like, you would never have tried these ever before. There's only a couple types I've come across so far, but I've never tried them before. The extent and distribution of genetic diversity, and it's amazing. The extent and distribution of genetic diversity in plant species depends on its evolution and breeding system. Fuck. I want to learn about how many breeding systems there are. Ecological and geographical factors, past bottlenecks, and often by many human factors. This isn't the way I want it to go, but it's so interesting. The genetic variation in a population is caused by multiple factors. Slash, like, a dash, and then they have big words, nature. Genetic variation describes naturally occurring genetic differences among individuals of the same species, which are variations. We just want genetic variations. This variation permits flexibility and survival. So what it's saying is they're naturally adapting seasonally every year. So, and this is incredible to note. Are they able to? They're basically guessing the future both ways. Oh my god, this is brilliant. What plants do, is they'll hypothetically breed for, some of the pollen will have plants that finish early, some of the plants will finish late, or finish what they call right on time for the season, right? They'll be right to the day. Anything early, or anything sooner than that is early, and anything later than that is after, the day, right? So longer flowering times, shorter flowering times, or exact flowering times to when the season ends, right? Now, you take this plant, and it's a mother. And what this just told me literally is that plants are evolving every season based on environmental factors is a big one. Nature, meaning cold and hot weather. Where I live, there are a lot of extreme environmental factors that can hit mid-season or end of season, or force your season to be a later season because it won't have a good start or it's too cold to start. Meanwhile, other places in the world with the same season on the same timeline, but a warmer climate in nature are way ahead, right? But then I think that the plants trigger a faster growth cycle. I think the plant would be like, oh shit, it's cold already, and whoa, the sun's over there already. I have to be at this stage already. So maybe I think that might be why everything grows pretty quick here. I think I might be, rubbing it in people's faces a little extra hard just because I'm in a very gifted area where it grows beautifully here. I'm not saying everybody's always does, but that's because you don't know what you're doing, right? Where I live. Some people's grows wicked, because they're always doing the right thing here. But the plant will give some of its pollen will be for earlier flowering plants. Some of its pollen will be directed towards generating perfectly timed flowering plants, like we'll call them middle of the season, or just when the season ends. Or some will be way later in the season, just in case the season was extended by a few months. Whoa. You think it's you half the time? 90%. This is why I've always said if you're just smart and you're really good at growing, the plants do most of the work as long as you understand the environment they need. But now I have to go back to, does genetic diversity differ between people and plants? I want to say, do the parameters that govern genetic diversity, do the parameters that govern genetic diversity differ between plants, people, and plants? Please give me something. Human genetic variation. Oh, this is what came back last time. R&D programs. Let's see what you got. I do want to do something like this, like a few of these, but not with anyone. And I have to know that all the research is always able to be shared with all areas of science. If it's not, I won't do any R&D. Plant genetic resources. Because maybe someone can say it's not true and prove why. I would love to know why, but if I'm on the right track, I want this. Then I want people saying, "Hey, I tried it with these 17 things. The dude's right on point." What is genetic diversity? Genetic diversity is known as. What is genetic drift? We know what that is already. What does biodiversity refer to? So it was biodiversity. That's what I'm. Do the parameters that govern biodiversity. I think that's what I want to put. Do the parameters that govern. See, genetics is too broad. I need biodiversity. Yes. Oh, I didn't put the word. I put genetic diversity. It's biodiversity. Biodiversity. Differ between. There you go. Come on! Protecting biodiversity. Preserving biodiversity. Sadly, 1 million species face extinction and many are disappearing at an alarming rate. So we're doing this show. I'm going to quickly tell you, in England, they're down to 50% biodiversity, meaning they've lost half, meaning exactly they've lost half of all species that ever lived in England. You should be extremely and heavily alarmed by this. Start planting trees. Don't go buy like 4 electronic devices that don't run on gas. Start doing things to help the environment, period. That easy. Stop hindering it. It changed me off of, do the parameters National Research Council Division on Earth and Life Studies Commission on Life Sciences, 1999. The book also recommends that more information about the role of biodiversity in sustaining natural resources be gathered and summarized in ways useful to managers. Biodiversity in Human Health brings together leading thinkers on global environment and biomedicine to explore the human health consequences of the loss of biological diversity. This is from 1999 and 1997, those two statements. They come out of the book they're coming out of two different books. Biodiversity and Human Health, 1997, and National Research Council Division on Earth and Life Studies, Commission on the Life Sciences, 1999. And it's a book. Concepts of Biology by Samantha Fowler. A strength of Concepts of Biology is that instructors can customize the book and have an approach that works. So that's like a classroom book. Alright, I think I'm done here. I don't want to read anything that comes from that kind of thing. Biodiversity conservation, biodiversity protection. Does biodiversity refer to the differences between plants and animals? That's not really... Maybe it is. Maybe it does mean that in a whole. Why is biodiversity different in different places? Because of nature. We already talked about that 10 minutes ago. And other environmental factors like human factors as well. What are three types of biodiversity? How are they different, it should say, from one another? How is biodiversity related to plants? Plants play a key role in ecosystems. Biodiversity of plants ensures a resource for new food crops and medicines. Plant life balances ecosystems. You notice how they didn't talk about pharmaceuticals there? They said medicine was plants. I say I'm plant-based, that means I eat medicine. You guys should really catch up though. Plant life balances ecosystems, protects watersheds, mitigates erosion, moderates climate, and provides shelter for many animal species. How can humans affect plant biodiversity? The main threats facing biodiversity globally are destruction, degradation, which is a monster of a word. I can't believe it's there that hard. We just spoke about that 15 minutes ago. Fragmentation, basically degradation, but on like a sliver level. Daily, you daily fragmentally degrade nature with your ketchup packets and your coffee lids, your pussies. Grow your own vegetables and stop buying corporation coffee, pussies. Reduction of individual survival and reproductive rates through exploitation, pollution, and the introduction of alien species. So alien meaning plants from Mexico don't go in Winnipeg, right? Are plants part of biodiversity? Biodiversity is all the different kinds of life you'll find in one area. The variety of animals, plants, fungi, and even microorganisms like bacteria, insects that make up our natural world. How do humans interact with plants? Photosynthesis and respiration are two essential processes that allow life to sustain on Earth. In a way, they are a cycle. Plants help humans breathe by providing us oxygen, and humans help plants breathe by providing them with carbon dioxide. As you can see, trees play a big part in our lives. How do humans affect plants? Another outside factor that affects plant growth is the human activity. We can add fertilizers to make plants grow bigger, faster,
We can also harm plants through fertilizers to make plants grow bigger and faster. Those are called PGRs. How you doing? Hey, bum dia. Tomato farmer in the house. How you doing, homie? Love tomato farmers. You're some of my tomato farmers are bosses. Diversity of plants and animals is very important. It makes living things adaptable. It allows wild and domesticated species to withstand threats like disease, climate change, pest control or pest defenses mechanisms would meaning you have blueberry, you got whatever, you got blueberry, ancient orange, and super silver on this side. The super silver might not have too much, and these two might be just literally covered in anything. They love orange, let me tell you. Not all orange, though. I did find a few that are different that they don't care for, but it's true. What is biodiversity? What are the different types of biodiversity? Biodiversity includes three main types. Diversity within species. Genetic diversity, so I have to species diversity, and between ecosystem diversity. Biodiversity includes three main types. Diversity within species. Whoa. Biodiversity includes three main types. Diversity within species, in brackets, genetic diversity. Plant biodiversity encompasses the ecosystem level, species diversity, and the genetic diversity within the species. Oh man, it kind of sounds like they really did say the same thing, but it is that deep and there is like just slight offs of it. I see how they correlate and I don't really get it fully, but it's going to take me probably a few years to get that. I have to find like a bunch of examples in nature. Or just find a bunch of examples of varieties between species. So biodiversity encompasses, it makes up all of it. All of those three. Plant biodiversity encompasses the ecosystem level, the species diversity, so the genetic diversity within the species. How are plants and humans different? Plant cell have cell wall, whereas human cell lacks cell wall. Ooh. Plants are autotrophic, whereas human beings are heterotrophic. Plants can make their own food in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, whereas animals cannot make. Plant cells contain a lot of vacuoles, whereas vacuoles are absent in human cells. Wonder if that has to do with the carbon dioxide and the oxygen thing, like if we're breathing in and taking out the wrong thing, if that's why we don't have and they do. How are humans and plants similar? Similarities between plants and humans. Plant and human cells also have many of the same parts. Mitochondrion, Golgi apparatus, rough and smooth endoplasmic reticulum, nucleus, cytoplasm, and ribosomes. Both require nutrients and water to survive, and both engage in some sort of respiration. I wish this went deeper. Here's something. Oh, I got a deep one too. Sciencing.com. This actually looks pretty good. Comparison of plant cells and human cells. I love looking at stuff like this under a microscope. I'm going to be getting a microscope. I just haven't decided. I'm very cheap, so I haven't decided if I'm getting like a $100 one or a $200 one. We get very few super chats, so I'm probably leaning towards the $200 one, and I'm going to be very upset with all of you. Remember that. Plants and humans are both living organisms that rely on environmental factors to survive. While both eat, drink, and breathe, the methods by which they do so greatly differ. This is due to basic differences. Let me read this again. Yeah, that makes sense, and that's simple. While the cells that make up each organism have some things in common, plant cells and human cells have distinct characteristics that make them instantly identifiable. Difference between plants and animals. The structure of the cell can help you determine whether you are looking at a plant or an animal cell. Animal cells are smaller and have a flexible outer membrane that allows gases and molecules and nutrients to pass into the cell. The larger plant cells have rigid cell walls made of cellulose microfibrils, whose rigidity is comparable to that of steel. Fuck off. The larger plant cells have rigid cell walls made of cellulose microfibrils, whose rigidity is comparable to that of steel. These stiff cell walls provide strength to plants and enable them to stand upright. Steel. I mean, I don't know if you felt one of my stalks, but they are not to be messed with. The cell wall also provides structure when the central vacuole fills up with water. The cell wall also provides structure, so it's even more weighty and stiff. During photosynthesis, the cell walls of a plant do not let any material pass. So plant cells instead have plasmodesmata, tiny openings between cells that serve as doors. The more flexible structure of animal cells also enables the animals to move, letting them travel to find food. Most plants do not move on their own. They stay where they are planted. Vacuoles are used to store and transport water, food, and waste. Vacuoles, membrane sacs, are used to store and transport. Wow, I wonder if you can increase the size of membrane sacs with, just with nature, like with heat, if you can make them a little bigger, if it's a little warmer and veg for the whole cycle, and then let's learn how to increase the membrane sacs on vacuoles. Wait a second. In plant cells, these vacuoles are large. In fact, they may take up most of the cell and help maintain a balance of water. Though the vacuoles of animal cells tend to be small, their function is similar to separate out waste products. So it's a filtering mechanism. Another difference between plants and animals is how their cells reproduce in both. So I wonder if there's like an ability, like a way to increase how much they can filter out. Because then they could get bigger. It would be full of no waste. It would be full of just, it would be better for plants in drought-like conditions. But you'd also have to be feeding a cleaner feed, which is minor. Let's save this site. I'm going to pop off onto another show in a bit. I want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in. And remember, you're only as awesome as you are. So be awesome. Whatever you do today, make sure it's awesome. You'll help your neighbor. And put a post out about something to do with something good in this world. Try to tame the evil that exists, the large voice of corporate lies that are being passed around daily. Try to limit what you say out loud that they preach to you, okay? Thank you to all the people that view the show and love it. Appreciate you. Hashman out. I'll see you next time. Peace. You already know. What's that?